I know the next company that will try to claim that they're too big to fail and take advantage of the current administration to go get a bailout. And I know you would ask why am I covering this topic, but it'll make sense as we go through it as it links to some of the conversations I've had in the past. First of all, I'll do a small victory lap on one topic. So a few weeks ago, almost like actually over the month ago, I made this video. So I published it on October 18th, but you can see over here, I actually record about a week prior to the published date, right? So around basically that week of beginning of October, I called and I said that, hey, OpenAI will try to claim that they're too big to fail, to take advantage of the current administration's interest in ensuring the economy at least propped up and looks as pretty as possible ahead of the midterm elections here in the United States. And I was like, hey, it's going to take a few months before this all comes down. And then literally within 2 weeks after I published that video, so 3 weeks after I made the video itself, we had OpenAI entering this like mini crisis mode because CFO during the, I think it was Wall Street Journal, some event that they were hosting, she kind of like alluded to the fact that, hey, it would be nice if, US government will backstop us when it comes to building out the infrastructure. Then Sam Altman went on a defense because they got completely blown up across social media, especially on Twitter, when it comes to their, potential attempt to go do the bailout. And of course, he had to come out and say, of course, we're not going to get bailed out. And long story short, since then, some paperwork came out. They were actually pitching US government already some ideas of like not calling it a bailout. Everyone's trying to kind of like avoid that name, especially after the 2008 crisis, right? When the US government had to go and like print a bunch of money to bail out a bunch of major corporations to prop up the economy and the jobs. Sometimes you do what you got to do, but here they're kind of like knowingly going in this direction because that's the only way they can sustain their business without completely crashing and losing all of their billions of dollars. And they've been slowly pitching US government, apparently behind closed doors, this idea already for a while publicly claiming, no, we're not trying to do this. And about like 3 days ago, as of recording of this video, White House launched the Genesis mission, which they called like Manhattan Project for AI, which is essentially the idea behind what OpenAI pitched them is that, hey, US government, you should go support the infrastructure. We're investing this billions and hundreds of billions of dollars into data centers. We're running out of power, so we need nuclear power stations. We need additional power to support all of this infrastructure that we're building out. Mind you, we're still not making money even to justify the valuations that we currently have, but we want to still keep building. And essentially with all of this happening, I don't know, I have so many issues with this particular project and the fact that they want to go and support some of this infrastructure side of things. But long story short, I called it 3 weeks before this entire thing went down, which was way actually shorter than I anticipated. I was thinking maybe beginning of the year when it will all go down, but hey, I'll take the win when I can take a win. Now, who is next, you might ask? MicroStrategy. So, a little bit of a background behind this company because this is just ridiculous premise. So the whole MicroStrategy strategy, they actually call themselves not just strategy. They dropped the micro, because it's cooler like that. They decided that they're just going to keep buying Bitcoin. They're not doing anything. They're not, going and saying like, we're going to invest it into some amazing business projects or anything like this. It's like, we're just going to buy Bitcoin. We're going to promise you 10% yield. So return on your investment. And they, so far, I think amassed close to like $58 billion worth of Bitcoin. Again, depending on the price dropped on Bitcoin, right, by like 20% recently. So I don't know exactly where they stand right now, but that's it. So they're doing and charging you premium, roughly, I think right now it used to be up to like $3. So like the valuation of the company was like 3 times the amount of Bitcoin that they hold, and they don't do anything with the Bitcoin, so it made 0 cents. Now, after this reset and after MicroStrategy dropped almost like I think 50% in stock price, they're at like 1 point change. Still, it makes no sense because you can go and buy Bitcoin yourself, and you can spend money on Bitcoin directly and take benefit from Bitcoin increasing in price directly. You don't have to have intermediary between you who actually also charges you the premium for buying their stock. So if it didn't make sense, that's the right reaction because it should not make sense. This is just a stupid idea. But people think that they're valuable. And now coming back to, so 60 billion, I was a little bit off, just by a measly amount off. Again, there's a bunch of money and they kind of like talk about EBITDA and all those things. But long story short is the reason why I think they're going to be propped up and they're going to be supported, because if the company like MicroStrategy goes down and potentially negatively affects the price of a Bitcoin, a lot of people will be impacted. And we don't have to go far in this administration. The Trump family made a ton of money on the crypto this year. And this is why I wanted to talk about it. I know I talk a lot about the creator economy and sometimes I talk about tech, and NFT as part of the crypto and the blockchain technology was something I got excited. I still believe that there's a way for us to do it. I still believe, just don't buy $50,000 gifts, but I still believe that there's a way for us to create some sort of like decentralized monetary system. I do believe that there's a room and there's a place in our world for it, but not in the current state of things. But long story short, coming back to this story, both Trump, actually all three of Trump's sons, are part of what is called World Liberty Financial, and they're making a ton of money. So as you saw earlier, like between this Wikipedia article, they basically quote that the family alone this year made about 400 million. The prior article actually says, no, they made close to 800 million. But long story short, even the Baron Trump, the youngest son, is like worth almost $200 million thanks to his stake in the World Liberty Financial. So they are heavily in the crypto, and they actually even have their own kind of like cryptocurrency, which is pegged to a dollar. So from the perspective of their assets that are kind of like spread across some of the cryptocurrencies, the value of this company, and it's pegging to US dollar. There's a lot of interconnections right now happening. And the thing is that this company goes and buys US stock bonds as well. So there's like additional, this kind of like vicious loop and circle that their ability to potentially be successful as a business heavily depends on the price of the cryptocurrencies and also on the security of the US treasuries, right? Like likelihood of US being able to pay back to their debt holders. And overall, there's like this assessment that I saw that overall the Trump family amassed close to $5 billion in the assets across all the different cryptocurrencies, right? And to make things even more interesting, we have a lot of crypto companies realizing that Trump will be friendly to the crypto. They taught him a lot of lessons. They taught him how to do the meme coin that generated hundreds of millions of dollars, allegedly, to him and his family. And they've been lobbying a lot. The numbers here are a little bit more conservative from what I've seen. They kind of like quote somewhere between 3 million. There's a conversation that broader companies that touch tech kind of like lobbied and invested into Trump campaign about 11 million. The other number that I've seen is 28 million. So there's a lot of interest and a lot of people who realize like, hey, Trump's going to be friendly and his administration will be friendly towards crypto. Let's go and help him understand the value of this and even help him generate his own income and additional asset value. Like Trump never used to be a billionaire, no matter how many times he claimed his assets were never in billions up until he entered the crypto. And now he's actually truly with his family as a billionaire, right? So they're loving and take advantage of that. And to the point that they even have David Sachs, who is like former Silicon Valley darling executive and venture capitalist, who is right now like AI and cryptos are. So you have all of these individuals basically heavily interested in propping up the crypto industry, right? And so when it comes to conversations about MicroStrategy, seeing how like the decrease in the cryptocurrency pricing due to some of the lack of liquidity, that's primarily what people kind of like attributed it to, is that in the current economic environment where things are not looking as good as maybe some people try to claim they are, there is a pullback from any kind of like volatile investments, and cryptocurrencies are heavily volatile, right? Like it can swing 20-30% on a daily basis, which is ridiculous and not trustworthy for, say, someone like a pension fund that needs to ensure that their investment is secure to be able to pay the pensions to their members. So you see a lot of this pullback of cash out of these currencies, and the pullback is still considered to be very small, and the reaction was already pretty severe. And that reflected in MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy obviously owns a bunch of crypto and they don't make any other money besides crypto, and they won't be able to potentially pay the dividends, right? And so they also raise debt, by the way, to pay and purchase crypto. So they might be underwater because the amount of money they borrowed to buy crypto is currently underwater. So meaning that even if they sell all of that crypto that they bought, primarily they only own, I think, Bitcoin. If they sell the Bitcoin that they own, there's a fear that it's not going to be enough to even pay for the debts that they currently owe, right? And again, there's no other business lines for them to tap into, so it pretty much means the bankruptcy for this company, and this company completely going down. And this is the state that they find themselves in. Their stock price already dropped by like 40%. I expect that there's another softness in the economy, if there's any other signals to the fact that people are not as certain in the outcomes of say stock market or the outcomes of certain investments, you're going to see more pullback. A lot of more people will be taking their money, putting them into cash, putting them potentially in the bonds, and just to make sure they have it more secure, and they at least combat somehow the inflation. Like transparently, that's what I did, right? Like we completely exited from any kind of like stocks. We're primarily right now only in treasury and a little bit in cash, and that's it, right? Because I fully believe that this entire market is so overvalued, and any day something might happen enough to destabilize and shake up the confidence, because that's all that it hinges on these days. All these overvalued companies, they're not tracking right now the actual performance metrics, right? The fundamentals. They all pretty much go on vibes. Teslas of the world, out Nvidia, okay, Nvidia partially vibe, they do make a ton of money, but they're heavily dependent on companies like OpenAI, right, being successful and being perceived as successful. So if any one of those crash, you're going to see the pullback out of the crypto, because it's not decentralized and detached from the currencies like US dollar as much as individuals who invest in crypto would like it to be. So you will see the pullback out of crypto, which means you're going to see the price going down probably into like 60,000 and below for something like Bitcoin, which means it's going to completely shatter the valuation for MicroStrategy, which means that potential will go down. So the way I think this whole thing will be potentially entangled, or at least propped up temporarily enough, again, attempting to push it through the midterm cycle, which is roughly November 2026, is that Trump's administration will probably make another announcement, like on AI. They made in my prior video, I spoke about the Project Genesis. There's probably going to be some other, they called it, I think, Genius Act before. They're going to be some Project Genius, some Project whatever, where they're going to just expand, in my opinion, the Bitcoin reserves. So they have this like strategic Bitcoin reserve, which up until this point, they were saying that they've only used funds and crypto that they've confiscated due to some illegal activity, and that's what was placed into that fund. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to find some other way to get the money and buy a bunch of Bitcoin, potentially even off of the company like MicroStrategy, to again prop up and give them some cash to operate, but also prop up the cost of the Bitcoin and cost of the crypto to signal to the rest of the investment world like, hey guys, don't panic, we're here. You know, the administration is here. The adults are in the room. We're going to try to prop you up and help you last longer. And I promise you, the whole goal will not be to help it last beyond 2 points. Number one, midterm elections, so November 2026. And number two will be the point up until all the major people, especially who are close to the current administration or lobbied for the current administration, had a chance to exit their positions. Once they exited their positions, they won't have a pressure to go and push the current administration to prop it up. And also current administration, if they're going to exit their positions, they won't have any need to go hold that. And essentially, taxpayers will be left to hold back, because then when it collapses, that essentially will affect the value that was kind of like assigned to us, as citizens of the United States. But do you think they will care? I don't think so. But again, that may be getting a little bit too political in this sense. I just wanted to stick to the points of where the money flows, right, and where the interests are. So yeah, that's my opinion. I know I kind of like made that video about OpenAI, and I had some thoughts and points in terms of where I think this is going, and it's already starting to come to fruition exactly as I described. I'm pretty confident, unfortunately, that this is going to be another thing that's going to happen. Hopefully, again, not prematurely, not right after I post this video. Let's give it some time. Let's, keep this gravy train going for a little while, at least for the sake of people's holidays, but we shall see. We shall see what the end of the year and the beginning of the 2026 demonstrates for us. But yeah, interesting times in this technology world. I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.